Our next speaker is Alfonso Feria. Since entering the world of disability through his youngest son, JP, Alfonso has become an advocate and catalyst for ministry to and with people with special needs in their families. His network of people, churches, and organizations doing different facets of disability work continues to grow. He founded and is the CEO of the disability ministry JP's Ability Hope, whose purpose is to bring hope and multiply opportunities to thrive for people with special needs of all ages and abilities. And today Al will talk about Disability Ministry in France 2025, which is a follow-up to what he shared in 2024. So welcome, Al.
Good morning, bonjour, everyone. I think there were like 10 people in the little room. We did quick takes last year, so it's already a lot more here. I'm happy to give this talk. Key Ministry I'm a big fan of Key Ministry. They've helped me as I've pursued going back into France again, so I really appreciate that. So yeah, when I applied to give this talk, I had no idea what was going to happen between the last talk and this talk. But yeah, God's been doing some great stuff. Let me make sure I hit the right button. Okay. So last year I said a new outreach frontier in an old country. And here's me with my favorite place, the Eiffel Tower in Paris. JP, my son, is 13 now. He was diagnosed with autism before 3, and that led us into a wild lot of changes. I went to France when I was 26 years old with a lot of bright ideas, and over the next 26 years, I got to do a lot of different ministry stuff in France with churches and youth groups and short-term teams and all that. It was awesome. And I thought I'd be there forever. The Lord brought me a wife and 4 kids over time in France. Our youngest is Jean-Philippe. All our kids were born in Paris. Same hospital, same doctor even that we had. Kids, you never know what you're going to get when you get them. And when he was about 3, John got diagnosed with autism, which we had no idea what that was at the time, but we learned that France was not very good with disabilities and special education, and that for his long-term future, we would need to leave our ministry there, our lives there, our apartment. Pretty much my whole adult life was in France, and so we had to come back to America with 4 kids, and so that was quite a change. I hated leaving France, honestly. I loved being there. But when God closes a door, sometimes he surprises us in new ways. And I didn't know that God would be leading us into a new door of disability ministry. And so my mission allowed me to experiment doing some disability projects. I was at the conference here in 2017, actually last one McLean Bible Church did. And I remember after that, Ryan Wolf, who's over in that corner, I gave him a phone call, and he gave some good advice. And Key Ministry and other groups have really been helpful in me figuring out a little bit more and more what disability ministry is about. And so I've been focused on that since 2014. And my previous organization allowed me to work with others doing disability work in other countries. And so I got to oversee some different projects in different places, but I never expected that I would be back in France. When we started the organization at the end of 2022, it would be to work in the US. I'm in New Jersey, so I worked with a bunch of projects in the Northeast. But God gave a dream one day about going back to France, and I was quite surprised about that. But I started contacting people who were there, and it's been quite an interesting ride. I've gotten to do 4 trips back to France since that time. And there's a lady named Catherine Moreau who's been a real point person for me. She's been a very good connector with a lot of different projects and camps and things like that. Catherine has a son named Zach who has autism, and so that's how she got interested into the world of autism. She and her husband, Christophe, who is a French pastor, lead churches, and Catherine has also been involved in some different projects over time. So since the last conference here, the Lord opened the door for a couple of different trips back to France. One in October at a camp in Bretagne in western France. This was the second time we've done this camp. Catherine Moreau has been the point person, the driver behind that. And then this past January, I got to go to a couple new places. I got to go to Normandy to visit a new church, or the church is going, but they want to do disability ministry. And then also to Bordeaux in wine country to see a sensory gym about to happen. And someone from this church named Carrie, who's one of the helpers here, she was the one that introduced me to the connection in France. And so I got to visit because of her connection here. And so I'm always looking for connections in France. People have connections there. I'd love to talk to you and forward me any leads you have. You never know what can happen with that. And so in January, I got to visit this church in Saint-Lô. I got to speak about disability ministry there. And hopefully they'll be getting going in that soon. Pastor Mauricio, who this church sponsors, his mother-in-law had a dream about a room full of people with disabilities in her city. And that's what's kind of triggered this move to try to do something in Saint-Lô. And McLean Bible Church is behind what they're doing too. So hopefully in the future, there'll be reports of advances with disability ministry in Saint-Lô. We're doing a lot of repeat camps. One encouraging thing in France is that there's a number of camps that are trying retreats, kind of like Johnny and Friends camps, but not quite as big. And they're repeating themselves again. Camp of the Peaks in the Alps, which is a Greater Europe Mission related camp. They did their second family camp this past April. There's a weekend on autism in France that Catherine Moreau led. And she's actually passing it off to other people. So every June, there's a group of people with autism getting together, and that will continue and hopefully expand to other places in France. And then Atypique is a name for the one we're doing in Bretagne. And that's a fun camp. It's right on the ocean. It's really beautiful setting. This is a great team that we have. And we actually had everyone back except one person from the first year team. So it was much smoother the camp the second year because everyone had a better idea what we were doing and how we worked. And I was able to recruit a guy from Minnesota named Dan. We couldn't figure out where we met, somewhere in the past we met, but he knows French and was able to be great help. So we're looking for French speakers to come for a short-term mission trip to France, different weekends to help suffer for the Lord in France, if you can do that. But it's a great opportunity to help families as well. And there's this really cool initiative in Bordeaux, a sensory gym. There's a couple, Bob and Molly, with the Christian and Missionary Alliance. They were actually in a Far Eastern country, had to leave in 2019, and they ended up in France. And then they're a beautiful family. They have 4 kids. Their last, William is their last one, and he was born prematurely in France, so they had to have him in a hospital for a number of weeks. And that's when they saw special needs, other families with kids that they didn't know what to do with. And that was when their hearts started moving toward disability in France. And so they have a friend in Wisconsin, I don't know if she's here or not, a disability pastor, specialist, and she gave them all sorts of tips on how to do sensory gyms. So they spent a lot of money on some of this cool equipment. And we did a test run in January on a Wednesday for the sensory gym. They weren't sure how many people would come, but there were 50 kids, plus a bunch of parents and all that. And everyone was really excited about the future of the sensory gym. So they're actually coming back to the US in a couple weeks for a year, but then when they go back, that's gonna be their thing, disability ministry and sensory gyms, and hopefully that'll expand to other sensory gyms in France. And so, yeah, it was great to be there, a lot of energy. And Bob and Millie had never been to a sensory gym before. I was amazed that they're leading this thing and had never experienced it. With my son, John, we're always in sensory gyms and all that, so I felt right at home helping there. So yeah, there were people from the church, a few, but mostly from outside the church. And their hope is that there'll be a lot more people from outside the church, and there'll be a post of outreach using disability ministry. And so I hope in the future to see other things that happen. I mean, I wouldn't have guessed a year ago there'd be a sensory gym in Bordeaux or a church in Normandy trying to do something. But there's little pockets happening in France, and I'm encouraged by that. And I pray that in the future there'll be a lot more pockets in France. And so if you have any leads on France, I'd love to hear about them. And pray for France, we need it. I live in New Jersey now, but I still love France. And thank you for the opportunity to share about this. God bless you. Que Dieu vous bénisse.